We have been exploring functions. Today, we're going to learn about slope-intercept form. This is one of the ways you can write an equation to represent a linear function. This is that bridge from 7th grade to Math 1, where in 8th grade math, when we do linear functions and we talk about writing the equation of those functions, we always use this form. In Math 1, you will learn about other forms. So what does this mean, slope-intercept form? We've already worked with slope in our previous lesson. Slope is represented by the letter m, so here you can see where that would be in our equation of a linear function. The second thing that we need besides a slope to write an equation in this form is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is represented by the letter b. Note, it's not represented by the y, it's represented by the letter b. What is the y-intercept? It is simply the place where the linear function, the line, crosses the y-axis on your graph. It's where it's intercepted or intersecting. So, we know what the m and the b represent in this form. What do the x and y represent? They are basically just any point along this line. It's x and y coordinates that would be true in this linear function. They would fall upon that line. So how do we take different representations and write the equation form in slope-intercept? What we're going to do for every single one is try to find the slope and the y-intercept. That's it. And we're going to write it into this form by keeping our y equals, then you'll have some slope times x, and then you will have plus, or it could be minus, we'll talk about that, it could be plus or minus, your b, or the y-intercept. We will basically just substitute in these values into that format, and that's all you have to do. So what if you're given a graph and you're asked to write the equation of this line? Okay, first I would need to know the slope. So just like we were finding the slope in the last lesson, I'm going to pick 2 points, and then I'm going to count my rise over run. Here I'm going down 1, and then I'm going right 1. Negative 1 over 1 will simplify to negative 1. I'm going to substitute that in to where the m or the slope is in my equation. Now I need to figure out the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where the line is crossing the y-axis. So I just want to look, if I have a graph, I want to look for that number where it's crossing. Here, it is intersecting at a 9, and that's a positive 9. So this would be plus 9 because it's positive. The y-intercept is the place on the line where you have a point where x equals 0 and then y equals some value. Like here, this coordinate would be 0, 9. That's how you know that's your y-intercept too. Now, if I wanted to clean this up a little bit, I don't need to write the coefficient of 1. I could just rewrite that as negative x. Again, it was a positive 9, so I'm going to put plus. And now I have the equation of that line. But what if we're given different representations? To write that equation, we need the slope and the y-intercept. That's going to be given to us in different ways. The big idea is see if you can find the slope, identify the y-intercept, and then you need to plug in whatever you know into this equation because sometimes you may have to do a little extra solving. So for my first example, they've given me the slope and then they've given me a point. So let's think about where I could substitute these things into this form. Well, m 2/3, that's easy. That's going to go in place of m. But then what about negative 3 and negative 9? That's just a coordinate. And you know in an ordered pair, the x coordinate is first, the y coordinate is second. So I can substitute these things in. mx, that's being multiplied. I'm going to use parentheses here to show where I'm substituting this in. So I'm going to replace x with a negative 3. Y is getting substituted with negative 9. And then I don't know what b is yet. So I'm going to bring this down. And now I'm ready to solve for b. We will use a little bit of video magic to make that happen. And now we see that b is equal to negative 7. My m is 2/3, and so I can write this equation. It's still in the form y equals m x plus or minus b, depending on the sign of that number. It's a negative 7, so I'm going to write minus 7. And that's the equation of the linear function that has a slope of 2/3 and goes through the point negative 3, negative 9. Here we have a table, and I have an ordered pair over here. Neither of these come out straight away and give me the slope, but we worked on this in our last lesson. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to calculate the slope for this table and for these ordered pairs. All right, video magic again, and you can see that I used the strategies from today's warm-up and yesterday's lesson to find the slope for both of these representations. Now, I can look to see, in this first example, it was very clear to me I did not have a y-intercept given. But remember, the y-intercept is the point where x equals 0, and you'll have whatever y is, that's the y-intercept. So you can always check to see if you have that point in your tables or in your ordered pairs. In this example, I do happen to have it right here. What this means, where x is 0, whatever this value is for y, that is my b. And so I now have enough information to write the equation. I don't have to do any further solving or substituting in to find a missing variable. I can just go in and fill in y equals, replace m with negative 1.2. My x comes down, and then my y-intercept is a negative 10, so I'm going to write minus 10. That is the equation for the linear function that's represented by this table. In this example, you have two options. Remember, I put my points into a table to find the slope here. So one choice is you could continue with the patterns here, your changes in y and change in x, and you could try to complete the table to the point where you find out when x is 0, what value y would be. That would give you b, your y-intercept, and then you could do this part of the process. Another choice is to make it kind of similar to how we did the first example over here. Pick one of the points they gave you, label which coordinate is your x and your y, and then go in and substitute like we did here to solve for b. So here I have my y value is negative 8. That is equal to the slope, which is 1/5, times x. I have an x value, it's positive 5. I don't know what b is, so I'm going to bring down plus b. And then let's do one more little round of video magic to solve for b. So in solving this equation for b, I find that my y-intercept is negative 9, and I can complete my slope-intercept form equation for the linear function that goes through these 2 points. Y equals m, which is 1/5, times x, plus or minus b. It just so happens this one's also negative, so I'm going to put minus 9. And that is how you write the equation for linear functions in slope-intercept form when you're given different representations.